I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. Most mornings, I cut through the bakery near campus. Not because their coffee is good, it isn't, but because it's the one place where the heat kicks in early. I always order the same thing. A plain filter coffee, no sugar. Cheap, predictable. Something that doesn't ask anything of me. That morning, I slipped inside half awake, rubbing at the crease my pillow left on my cheek. The door chimed, soft and tired, like even it wasn't fully committed to the day. She was behind the counter. My friend's mom, Mira. I hadn't seen her in months. Not since she moved out of their old place and took this job for a change of pace, as her son put it. He never explained more, and I didn't ask. She glanced up, then did a small double take. Her mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "Oh," she said. "You're still around." "Yeah," I murmured, stepping forward. "Guess I am." She reached for the pot, shaking it gently as if greeting an old acquaintance. "Coffee?" Same as before. That caught me off guard. It wasn't like I'd ever been memorable. Back then, I was just another one of her son's friends, always leaving dishes in the sink, always trailing mud in from the yard. Yeah? Seems good." She nodded, pouring slowly, like accuracy mattered. Her hands were steady, but there was this moment, barely a breath, where her eyes flicked toward mine, quick and unsure. "You look tired," she said. "Midterms." She slid the cup toward me. "And life." We both pretended that wasn't too honest for 8:15 a.m. The bakery was nearly empty, just the hum of the refrigerator and a couple arguing quietly near the window. I took my usual seat by the wall. The chair wobbled if you leaned too far left, something I always forgot until it happened. Mira wiped down the counter, slow circles, her wrist twisting gently. Every now and then, her eyes drifted toward me before she realized it and turned away. Not shy, more like careful. I tried focusing on my phone, typing out a message to a friend, then deleting it. I do that a lot, start sentences I don't finish. "You up? Want to grab dinner?" Never mind. Nothing ever leaves the drafts folder. At some point, Mira came over with a napkin and set it beside my cup. "They keep giving us the flimsy ones. These fold better." She demonstrated without thinking, pressing one crease, then another. "Perfect, neat edges." "See," she said softly. I nodded, though the shape was already unfolding in my hands. She hesitated, her fingers tapping once against the table. "How's Noah doing?" "He barely returns my messages." "He's fine," I said. "Busy. New job." She sighed, looking toward the window. "I keep telling myself you're just his friend, but I suppose I worry through anyone who might know how he is." My stomach tightened. The way she said it, gentle, but with something tucked underneath, stayed with me longer than it should have. I watched her walk back behind the counter, tying her apron again even though it didn't need tying. A loop, a pull, a small correction. She had these little habits, gestures that made more noise than her words. I finished my coffee slowly, letting the last bit cool to lukewarm. When I finally stood, she looked up. "See you tomorrow?" she asked. It wasn't casual. It wasn't eager either. More like she was asking for a reason she didn't want to name. "Yeah," I said. "I think you will." I pushed open the door. The cold hit my face, woke me up a little too much. That's when my phone buzzed. A message. From her. Just 5 words. "If you're still nearby, come back." The door swung shut behind me before I could turn around. I almost didn't go back. Not because I didn't want to, but because something about those 5 words felt loaded. Too intentional, too bare. People don't text like that unless they mean it. But my feet moved before my brain caught up, and within a minute, I was standing in front of the bakery door again. I pushed it open quietly, like I might interrupt something. Mira was wiping down a tray, but she froze when the bell chimed. A tiny breath left her, relief or nerves, I couldn't tell. "Oh," she said, trying for casual. "You came back. You asked." She let out a soft laugh, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Right. I did." She motioned toward the side counter. "Come here for a second." I, didn't want to say this in front of everyone. There was no one now, except the hum of the fridge and a delivery truck idling outside. I followed her to the corner where the old espresso machine lived. She fiddled with a loose switch on it, stalling, maybe. I didn't text you because of coffee or anything, she said. She paused, pressing her thumb to the countertop. I haven't talked to anyone properly today. Not really. I didn't want the morning to end yet. That was more honest than I expected. More honest than people usually are with me. I shrugged lightly, pretending my heartbeat wasn't doing strange things. I get that. She tilted her head. You do? Yeah. Some days feel too quiet. Even when you're around people. Her eyes softened, like I'd said something she didn't expect. Exactly. She poured hot water into a mug, no tea bag, just water, and cupped it with both hands. A grounding gesture. When Noah was little, she said suddenly, he used to hate walking to school alone. He'd pretend his shoelace came undone just so he could stay by the door a little longer. She smiled at the memory, small and distant. We want to stay where things feel safe, even if it looks silly. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The quiet between us felt shared. She handed me a mug of tea. Chamomile. She remembered I didn't like anything too sweet. Thanks, I murmured, wrapping my hands around it. Our fingers brushed for half a second. Barely anything. But it felt like a thread tightened between us. She didn't pull away quickly. That was the part that lodged somewhere deep. After a moment, she cleared her throat. This is inappropriate, isn't it? The question was light, but her shoulders tensed. I shifted my weight. I'm not sure what this is. Neither am I, she whispered. The air thickened. Not romantic, not dramatic, just aware. We stood like that, drinking our too-hot tea, listening to the city waking up outside. A normal moment, except it wasn't. I kept thinking of something I wouldn't dare say aloud. If you asked me to stay a little longer, I would. The delivery truck honked, snapping us out of whatever we were in. She set her mug down, a tiny clink of ceramic. Thank you, she said quietly, for coming back. I nodded. Anytime. As I turned to leave, she reached out, not grabbing, just a light touch to my sleeve. A touch that shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. And for reasons I still can't explain, I knew I would remember that moment. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. For a few days after that morning, things settled into a rhythm that wasn't really a rhythm. Not steady, not predictable. More like a pull. A quiet one. The kind you only notice when something interrupts it. I stopped by the bakery more often. Not every day, didn't want to make it obvious, but more than I used to. Mira always noticed. Not with words. With the way her shoulders eased when she saw me, or how she'd slide an extra napkin toward me without being asked. But then something shifted. It was a Thursday. The place was busier than usual, and she looked tired. Tired in the way people do when they've been up thinking too long. When I stepped inside, she didn't give the usual half-smile. Just a brief nod, then back to wiping the counter. I ordered quietly. She set the cup down without looking at me. I felt the distance before I understood it. You okay? I asked when the line thinned. She hesitated, barely a flick of her eyes. Just a long morning. But something in her voice was closed. A door halfway shut. I didn't know if I'd done something wrong, or if it was something else entirely. My thoughts spiraled, stupid little scenarios. Maybe she regretted texting me. Maybe Noah had said something. Maybe she'd replayed the moment our fingers touched and decided it meant nothing. Or worse, too much. I sat in my usual seat, though it felt different now. The chair still wobbled left, but somehow that bothered me more today. She kept glancing over, quick little checks, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Or wouldn't. I caught her once. Our eyes met. She looked away first. That stung more than I wanted to admit. 10 minutes later, as I was stirring coffee I didn't even want, the door opened. Noah walked in. Of course. He spotted me instantly. Hey, dude, what are you doing here? I forced a smile. Just coffee. He didn't notice anything. He never does. Myra's posture stiffened the moment he arrived, and she didn't look at me once. Not even when she handed him his order. They talked about something, his job, rent, a missed call. I wasn't really listening. I was listening to everything she wasn't saying. When he left, the silence felt heavier. I walked to the counter. Was that why you were off today? No, she said too quickly. Then softer, not entirely. I waited. She didn't continue. It felt like I had to push and not push at the same time. Mira, if I did something, you didn't. She cut me off gently. That's the problem. I blinked. I don't understand. She pressed her palms against the counter, grounding herself. I shouldn't rely on you for things I'm supposed to manage alone. It's not fair. That wasn't what I expected. Not even close. It doesn't bother me, I said quietly. It should. We stood there, both unsure how to move or breathe or step back. Someone walked in behind me, and she straightened quickly, mask slipping back into place. I stepped aside, letting them order, but she didn't look up again. When the customer left, the shop felt too empty. I started toward the door. I'll see you, wait. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I turned. She took one step closer. Not enough to touch. Just enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence. I keep thinking, she swallowed. If you stay any longer, I might say something I shouldn't. My breath caught. And for a moment, just one, she leaned in. Not all the way. Not enough for anything to happen. But close enough that her breath brushed my cheek. Close enough that if either of us moved an inch, everything would change. I didn't see Mira for 2 days after that almost moment in the bakery. I told myself I was giving her space, but the truth was, I wasn't sure what I'd do if she looked at me the same way again. Or if she didn't. On the third evening, as I cut through the neighborhood after class, I saw her locking up the bakery. She paused when she noticed me across the street. Just a tiny lift of her hand. Not a wave, more like permission. I crossed over. You heading home? I asked. Eventually, she said, pulling her bag higher on her shoulder. Walk with me. I nodded. We fell into step, a quiet pace, like neither of us wanted to move too quickly. The street was soft with early evening light. Kids on bikes, a dog barking down the block, someone watering a plant that didn't look like it wanted to live. Ordinary things. The kind of things that should have made this feel normal. It didn't. At the corner, she stopped by a small bench outside a closed flower shop. She brushed off a leaf and sat. I joined her, leaving just enough space between us to pretend it meant nothing. She let out a long breath. Not dramatic, just tired in a way I hadn't seen before. I'm not good at boundaries, she said quietly. I stayed still. Most people aren't. No, she shook her head. I mean, with people I start to care about. My chest tightened. She didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on the cracked pavement, twisting her keyring around her finger. The metal clicked softly with each turn. I told myself that morning, when you came back, that it was just kindness. Just conversation. She gave a thin, unsteady smile. But the truth is, I wanted you to stay. And that scared me more than it should have. I swallowed. It scared me too. She glanced at me then. Quick, searching, a flicker of something raw. Why? She asked. I hesitated. The question was simple, but answering felt like stepping too close to a line I wasn't sure either of us could walk back from. Because, I started, but the words tangled. Because I didn't want it to be just a moment that didn't mean anything. Her breath hitched, barely audible, but I heard it. We sat there, both facing forward now, like staring straight ahead made honesty less dangerous. I saw you with Noah, she said suddenly. And all I could think was, how ridiculous, how inappropriate, how jealous I felt. She flinched at the word. And I hate that. I hate that about myself. Jealous. The word hung between us like a fragile, trembling thing. You're allowed to feel things, I said quietly. No, she whispered. Not this. A breeze drifted past, carrying the faint smell of overwatered soil from the flower shop planters. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, hand shaking just slightly. Tell me something, she said. And be honest. I nodded, pulse unsteady. If I hadn't stopped myself that day, she turned toward me, eyes steady, vulnerable in the way people are only when they're past the point of pretending. Would you have kissed me? The question landed like a final step to an edge we'd both been circling. I opened my mouth, and the world held its breath. I didn't answer her question, not because I didn't want to, but because something in her expression told me that whatever I said would shift everything too fast. Before I could speak, her phone buzzed. A single vibration, a name flashing briefly on the screen before she flipped it over. Her face changed. Just slightly, but enough. She stood. We should go. The conversation, the almost confession, fell apart quietly, like a paper cup left in the rain. I followed her back toward the main street. Neither of us spoke. Our footsteps felt too loud on the pavement, too final. At the corner, she paused. "Take care getting home," she said. It sounded practiced, like she'd said it many times to someone else. Then she walked away. I watched her go, feeling something sink slowly, the way a stone settles in water. Not painful, just that heavy kind of quiet. The next morning, I went to the bakery. She wasn't there. A different woman stood behind the counter, cheerful in a way that felt out of place. "Oh, Mira," she said when I asked. She took the day off. "Personal stuff, I think." Personal stuff. The most useless phrase in the world. I sat in my usual spot anyway, even though the chair wobbled the same, and the coffee tasted the same, and everything else was wrong. I half expected her to walk in late, brushing hair out of her face, apologizing with that soft, crooked smile. She didn't. I drafted a message, "Hope you're okay." Deleted it. Then, "Did I say something wrong?" Deleted. Then, "I'm still here if you want to talk." Deleted, too, because it sounded like something someone says at the end of a movie when they're pretending not to beg. I left the bakery early. The cup was still half full. That evening, I ran into Noah on campus. He waved me over. "Dude, weird question, did Mom call you?" "She's been off lately." He said it casually, but his eyes searched mine in a way that made my stomach tighten. "No," I said. "I haven't seen her." Technically true. Emotionally not. He sighed. "Yeah, her ex is back in town. I think it's messing with her." Ex. Of course. There's always someone in stories like this. A shadow standing just out of frame. "Anyway," he went on, "she'll be fine. She always is." I nodded, but something inside me felt unsettled. Like I'd been holding one version of Mira in my mind. Warm, attentive, reachable. And suddenly realized there were whole parts of her that lived in rooms I didn't have the key to. I walked home slowly. My phone was heavy in my pocket. At my door, I typed one last message. "If you want me to stop coming by, I will. Just tell me." My thumb hovered over send. I didn't send it. The screen dimmed, my reflection faint in the glass, half-formed, unfinished. And for the first time, it hit me. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I didn't plan on seeing her again. Not soon, anyway. I convinced myself that giving space was the mature thing to do. She had an ex back. She had her own storms, and I didn't want to be another weight pulling at her. But life doesn't care about plans. 3 nights later, someone knocked on my door. Soft. Hesitant. Not the kind of knock people use when they're sure of themselves. I opened it to find Mira standing in the hallway, sweater pulled tight around her, hair a little messy like she'd walked here too fast. For a second, neither of us spoke. I could hear my own breathing more than hers. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, like she wasn't sure she should be doing any of this. My apartment wasn't much, just a quiet place with a half-dead plant and a stack of dishes I meant to wash. She scanned the room, not judging, just taking it in. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, sitting at the edge of the couch. I didn't want to go home, and I didn't want to be alone. I sat across from her, hands clasped between my knees. I didn't want to say anything wrong. She rubbed her thumb along a loose thread on my cushion. "I'm sorry I disappeared. You don't owe me an explanation." "I do." She looked up then, face open in a way that scared me because it felt like she was letting me glimpse something she usually kept locked away. That night on the bench, I asked something I wasn't ready to hear the answer to. I swallowed. "I was going to tell you." She nodded. "I know. That's the part that scared me." Silence again, not cold, just careful. "My ex, he showed up at the bakery that day," she said. "He wanted to talk, which always means he wants me to fix something for him." I thought I'd moved on from that version of myself, the one who bends to make other people comfortable. And seeing me there, I stopped, searching for the right words. It made things complicated. It made things real. She breathed out slowly. "You're young. You're kind. You listen. And I started wanting things from you that I had no right to want." My chest tightened. Not a painful feeling, just an honest one. I moved to sit beside her, leaving a polite inch of space. "You can want things," I said softly. "Should I?" she asked, voice thin. When everything about this feels like I'm crossing lines I drew myself? I hesitated. There are moments in life where you either speak or lose something quietly forever. So I chose. I wasn't paused because you left, I said. I was paused because I didn't know if you wanted me in your life or just in that bakery. Her eyes glistened. Not tears, just a shine of clarity. I wanted you, she whispered. Not the coffee. Not the routine. You. The room felt smaller then. Warmer. She reached out, stopping halfway like she was offering me an out. I met her hand in the space between us. We didn't kiss. We didn't embrace. We just sat there, fingers touching lightly, like two people finally standing still after circling each other for too long. She let out a shaky breath. Okay, she murmured. Okay, I echoed. And for the first time, it felt like neither of us was running any more. The conclusion, slow emotional closure, almost equals 500 words, soft, grounded, earned, callback rich. They didn't fall into a routine again. Not immediately. Life stretched out in odd shapes for a while. New schedules, missed mornings, small silences that used to feel uneasy, but now just existed. And maybe that was its own kind of healing. Not fixing everything, just letting things breathe. Some days they passed each other like before, nodding, that almost smile hovering. Other days one of them hesitated, him at the corner cafe, her at the park gate, as if waiting for the other to appear. Sometimes nothing happened. Sometimes it did. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't meant to be. One Wednesday, weeks later, he showed up at 8:47 a.m. Again, same bench, same black coffee in the paper cup. He always pretended he didn't mind. The morning was colder than usual, and he wondered if she'd come or if he'd only end up sitting with the crows in the quiet. She arrived late. Not rushed, just late in that soft, deliberate way she had when she wasn't sure how close to stand. She held her tea with both hands, steam curling around her face like it was protecting her. They didn't greet each other. They didn't need to. He shifted, making just enough space for her. She took it. A small thing. Earned, not asked for. They talked about nothing. The weather, a broken vending machine, how early the trees were shedding this year. But their voices felt lighter, less guarded. His laugh came more easily. Her eyes lingered a little longer. The kind of changes only they would notice, tiny enough that even the air didn't bother reacting. Eventually, she told him she'd been taking a different route to work. More sunlight, she said. Not the full truth. Not a lie either. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. He admitted he'd been staying late these days. Quiet helps me think, he said. That wasn't the whole truth either. They didn't mention the messages almost sent, the steps almost taken, the moment at the doorway that nearly tipped everything over. Some things didn't need revisiting. They were already threaded into the silence between them. When she shivered, he nudged his shoulder closer, just enough to warm the air around her without touching. She noticed. Let him. And that was its own kind of answer. Time moved slower after that. Or maybe they did. They didn't rush toward anything. Didn't label whatever this was becoming. They just kept meeting. On purpose, but gently. At the bench, at the cafe, sometimes by accident, though both of them knew it rarely was. Life didn't turn perfect. It settled. Softly. Like something fragile finally placed on a table without trembling hands. And one late morning, as she sipped her tea and he blew across his too-hot coffee, she said quietly, almost to herself, "This feels right." He didn't reply, just smiled, small, real. She saw it, understood it. Their hands didn't touch. Not yet, but they stayed close enough that the space between them wasn't empty anymore. A quiet, earned peace. And as the clock flicked to 8:47 again, they both noticed and didn't say a word. Just shared the moment. Something only they would understand.